What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I'm going to recap all the trades that we ended up taking throughout the week, give you guys some pointers on how I trade these charts. So to start the week, this is where we ended up opening at on the 30-minute chart. You can see we were at the 30-minute 50 on the call side here right off of open on Monday, and this is a major pivot point. So pretty much we need to see this chart go and cross, break the 50 for this to continue higher. And yeah, that's what we ended up looking like off of open. I tried taking a short like 2 times on Monday, playing this negative cross right here. This is the last screenshot I had of it, but I was trying to play this negative cross right here on the call side since we were at that 30-minute 50. This was a good, I thought it was a good trade opportunity to go short since, you know, we're at that massive resistance here on the 30 minutes. So when we got this setup developing here, I ended up shorting at 11.25. So this is when I went exactly short. I waited until this got closer to the 50, and it was just it was a very weird trade because this 50 SMA ended up like turning down and then turning back up. So it was a little bit of a funky trade. Ended up like taking a break even on it, and then I think I cut it for a few points, probably like 5-6 points for an L. So that's pretty much the first trade I ended up taking on Monday. Wasn't the best, you know, thing in the world. Wasn't the best setup just because of how the 50 looked, and it actually didn't cross negative yet. But yeah, that was the first thing we ended up taking on Monday. So that was a very, very small loss. And then I ended up going long, and I'm pretty sure we ended up getting back above the 10, the 50, and getting across here on the call side. If I had to guess. So yeah, we ended up getting a call cross. I don't think I had the screenshot of it, but we ended up getting a call cross on the 0DT chart after this chart went negative. It came back up, started across again on the call side, and this is what the 30-minute ended up looking like on SPY. So this is what we looked like on the 30-minute chart. We got an initial small rejection here off that 30-minute 50. We came back to the 10, bounced off the 10, pulled up to this 50. And the reason I took this was because we already got the initial rejection out the 50, and the 50 isn't down too much. So I took the chance here to pretty much anticipate that this was going to break. So that's why I ended up taking the call cross. We got, I think I was up over 50 points on it. It wasn't anything crazy. I took a good trim at, I believe, yeah, 50 points on NQ. And then it kind of chopped up a little bit, chopped around, and then I ended up exiting at 128 on Monday. So that was one of the trades I ended up taking. I swear I had the screenshot. Maybe I don't have it, but I swear I always take a screenshot of the charts, but we didn't. That was the trade we ended up taking on Monday. And we also ended up taking Coin and also Google. So Coin was pretty much just setting up here on the 30-minute chart. It didn't end up playing out. The 50 ended up turning down at close, so I ended up cutting it for a couple percent in profit because the 50 ended up turning down at some point. So we exited that. It was pretty much a break-even trade at that point, and we took Google right here. So Google, very nice setup. We pulled the 30-minute chart here, right here, 10 SMA going above the 50, and we got a nice move out of it. I was up 50% at 205 on Monday, so we ended up taking a trim there, took half off. And yeah, I think I ended up entering this right around this 30-minute candle right here, right below $3 a piece. I grabbed which one? We grabbed the 295 call, so they ended up moving a little bit more than these ones since they were further out of the money. But yeah, Google was a really good setup. We ended up taking that. So that was pretty much all the trades we ended up taking on Monday. I wish I had that screenshot of the call cross, but that's what ended up happening. We ended up getting back above this 10 to 50 here on the 0DT chart for the 678 calls, ended up crossing, and we got a solid move out of it. So Monday, solid day, nothing too crazy. Took, like I said, Google for a nice win, and then Coin was pretty much a break-even trade. Then on Tuesday, I ended up getting back in Google. I ended up buying the dip at the 50 right here. I don't even know if I have the screenshot pulled up over here, but pretty much on Google, this chart ended up pulling back the next day, and we hit the 50 SMA. Okay, I do have it right here. So we pulled back, hit the 50. This 50 SMA ended up turning down at some point, and that tells me to get out. And then I waited for it to start to flatten back out to get back in. So yeah, we ended up buying that 50 dip, and then you can see we got a nice move out of it. I didn't end up selling anything just because we weren't up that 50% that I'm looking for on every trade. So we bought the dip at the 50, got a solid move. I think I was up like 30, 35% maybe at max. And then the next day, I actually ended up pulling back to this 50, and I'm breaking the 50, so I ended up taking a loss on Google the next day for like probably 20, I think 30% it was, 30%. So that didn't end up playing out after the fact because SPY ended up hitting massive resistance. I went over this beginning of the week on the 30-minute chart after we started crossing that I don't expect the trend to go on for too long because of this 4-hour chart right here. This 4-hour chart was such a big key factor going into the week and was a big reason why the market ended up seeing a massive move down, and we were able to catch it because this chart right here, we pop up to this 50. I do not expect us to go any higher from there because of how sloped down it is. It's the 4-hour 50 massive time frame. So when we got this pop up into the 50, I'm trying to find the screenshot. So when we got this pop up into the 50, I ended up grabbing short, and I ended up swinging that into the next day. So I'm pretty sure that was on, what day was it? I think 11/12, whatever day that was. I ended up grabbing a swing at the close at 339, and we ended up swinging the 670 puts for 11/28. Following day, we ended up dropping like 500 points on NQ, and we were able to get a big move out of it. I mean, that was why we saw a massive drop this week, and it was pretty textbook. So before we even go further on that, we end up taking Apple as well, just a simple 30-minute cross. I took an early entry on this, so this 10 SMA crossing above the 50 on the 30-minute here on the 275 calls, and we got a nice move out of it, trimmed for like 50%. And then same thing, this was the same day as Google. I ended up getting stopped out on the rest the next day because obviously SPY ended up rejecting the 4-hour 50. So that ended up kind of bringing down the entire market and ended up getting stopped on the rest on Apple. So I think that was like a 15% loss on the other half of the position after we got our trim off for 50%. So that was still like a net green trade there. And then on 11/12, we were able to catch this little put cross here for, I think, like 50 to 60 points on it, trimmed half, and then I ended up getting break even on the other half that I had. So wasn't anything crazy on that move. Simple 10 SMA crossing with the 50 here on the 0DT puts, 5-minute time frame, and that was another trade we ended up taking. The SPY puts we swung. I'm trying to find when we ended up trimming those the next day. So the next day we ended up trimming half of them. I think I was up right around 50%, maybe more than that actually, maybe like 80%. 50%. I ended up trimming half, and later in the day we ended up trimming the rest for around like 70 to 80%. So that was a really good swing. And then I'm trying to find where 11/13 we ended up taking another short, which was probably just based on the 0DT chart. Yeah, so 11/13, very simple read on this. So the puts here were crossed off the open. What I wanted to see was price pull back to this 50 SMA and then reclaim the 10 SMA. I wouldn't be against buying this 50 dip either because this is what the 30-minute chart ended up looking like. And this is, again, another big factor on why the market ended up dropping on the 13th, which was, Thursday or Wednesday? Must have been Thursday. That was Thursday, right? Yeah, so on Thursday, the bulls couldn't hold the trend. So you can see we lost the 50 right here. We closed right below that blue line, the 50 SMA. Key support lost. And again, I went over that I didn't think the trend would hold because of this massive resistance. So tying this massive resistance in with this negative cross on the 30-minute chart, with the puts crossed on the 0DT chart, there's literally zero reason you should have been bullish on Thursday. Everything was pointing to the downside, and given that this chart was crossing negative on the 30-minute, you could have bought this dip at the 50 because it's the same thing as a positive cross on the 30-minute. When we get a 30-minute cross on, let's just say the puts, and then the 0DT chart is crossing on the puts as well, and we get a pullback to the 50 on the 0DT chart, that 50 is way more likely to hold because that 30-minute chart is in confluence with the 0DT chart. So that's why I wasn't, against buying the 50 dip. I didn't take it, but you could have if you wanted. It was a very low risk entry given what the 30-minute chart looked like. So I gave this in the Discord. I said I want to see price hit the 50, close back above the 10 to go short. We ended up hitting the 50, popping off of the 50, and I ended up going short right on the open of the 10:30 candle. It wasn't when the 10 SMA closed or when the price closed above the 10 SMA. I was just very confident in the downside. 30-minute going negative. We held the key support on the 0DT chart, and then on the next candle open, ended up grabbing some short, and then I grabbed some more after we started to break above and start to close above the 10 SMA. So we got a very nice move out of that. And this is what the 0DT chart ended up looking like after the fact. You could see that 50 SMA, massive support on the 0DT chart held, close above the 10, and we saw the continuation move lower, and we got like 150 points on NQ on that move. It was a very, very big move. That was the best trade probably of the week. It was very clean, very easy to catch. System was able to paint the picture pretty much the entire week on where we were going, and you just had to execute when the setups were given. I mean, it's very simple. You guys are new. It's probably a lot of information. It's probably very confusing, but when you break it down, it's not that hard to understand. You're looking at 2 contracts each day, or 4 contracts really. 2 0DT, 2 Friday contracts. I say this in like every video. I kind of just like to break down the strategy, but we use the Friday contracts to tell us how to trade the 0DT contracts. So 30-minute chart on the Fridays tell me the trend in the market. If we're crossed on the 30-minute on the puts, market's bearish. That 50 SMA has to be flat or curling up for us to be considered bearish. Same thing with the call side. If the calls are crossed on the 30-minute on the Friday contracts, with the 50 being flat or curled up, the market is bullish. And when we know that, we only want to be focused on the long side in most scenarios. This week was one of those scenarios where I favored the downside just because off the 4-hour chart. I mean, like, I can't be super bullish when this 50 SMA is right above. I mean, yes, we could pop up into a little bit more. I said on what day was it? Tuesday, I believe it was. Was it Tuesday or Monday? I forget what day it was when we were kind of nearing it, but not right at the 50. I said, okay, we're probably going to gap up the next day, a little like slightly green and then flip red just because of that 4-hour 50 SMA. I mean, it's just such a massive spot. So, there's certain scenarios where, 30-minute chart, I'm not as bullish just because like a day like this week. I mean, like, how could you be bullish when we have that massive resistance overhead? So, there's times where this will happen, and then there's gonna be times where we're nowhere near that 4-hour 50 SMA when we get across. So, you just gotta know what the higher time frames look like. Those are super important when determining where we're gonna go next and how far we could go. So, since we didn't have much room to go to the 50, I wasn't as bullish. So, given that, we took a put swing, and then eventually the bulls lost the trend on the 30-minute, and then after the bulls lose the trend on the 30-minute and start to cross negative, I'm favoring the downside still. I mean, that's why the move was so drastic. I keep saying it, but 4-hour chart combined with the 30-minute going negative on the calls, and then we also got a put cross intraday. I mean, that's like the recipe for taking a short. That's your A+ setup when 0DT chart aligns with the 30-minute chart. When we're getting that cross on the 30, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. It's a very high conviction trade. If we're getting a negative cross on the 30-minute on calls and we're getting a put cross at the same time, that's a very high conviction trade, and those are the trades that you need to take advantage on and expect a lot larger moves. And same thing goes on a positive cross on the 30-minute chart. If we're getting a 30-minute cross on the calls and we're breaking above the 50, we're getting a closure above the 50 and we're starting to cross, and then we get a 0DT call cross followed up with that. I mean, that's just a perfect setup that you want to hammer and be able to squeeze out a good amount of points on, because you don't want to sell that for a small gain. I mean, it's a very high conviction trade. You got a very large move that you're expecting. I'd expect at least like 70 to 80 points on NQ on a move like that. Obviously, you could still trim for like 50, 60 points. Just make sure you have runners when you're taking those trades, because you don't want to be selling yourself short on those types of moves, because you're gonna be most of the time those trades are gonna give you a lot bigger moves than just a simple 0DT cross in a neutral market. That's how I do it. Like, when we're in a completely neutral market, 50 points is all I'm looking for. When we have the 30-minute chart in confluence with the 0DT chart, I'm looking for more. I'm taking half off at 50, and I'm holding the other half for like 80 points, maybe take a little bit more off, and then take everything off over like 100 points. That's the way you want to do it with these charts. You never want to exit full position when the 30-minute chart is in confluence with the 0DT chart. You never want to take your full take profit at your pretty much minimum that you usually do. In a neutral market, it's 50 or not 50%. I mean, it could be 50% if you're trading options, but for points on NQ, I'm looking for 50 points, and that's it in a neutral market, because I know there's no trend. One side isn't favored, and then when we have that 30-minute chart in confluence, then I'm looking for the bigger move. Trim half at 50, hold some more for 80, and sell the rest over 100. So that's pretty much how you want to go about taking those take profits on the trades, given what market we're in. So, and then again, TPs could be a little bit different when the volatility is pretty high, like this week. The VIX has been through the roof, and we actually took a swing on VIX this week. I did it twice. So I know I have the chart. Yeah, so we have the chart here somewhere. The VIX chart. It's not a typical trade I look for, but I just saw how nice this was setting up. So I ended up grabbing a swing on VIX on this day right here. I don't know what it was, but this wick here to the 10 SMA right around there. That's where I started to grab a call swing on VIX. I mean, it just looked really nice. And I grabbed December calls. It was like the 33 calls. They had a ton of volume. So I ended up grabbing those. And we got initial 50% on this move up here. Trimmed half. We pulled back to this 50. I ended up trimming or grabbing more. I actually grabbed a lot more, I'm not going to lie, because I was very confident in this with how the 4-hour 50 was going to reject on the call side. And then 30-minute going negative on the calls. I mean, everything looked really good. So I ended up grabbing more of those calls right here. And then, as you guys know, on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, VIX ended up popping back up to like 21, 22. So I trimmed half again on Friday. I still have my other half running. I feel like we're still going to end up holding the bearish trend. I'm going to go over that more so in tomorrow's video. But yeah, Friday was a really good day. And like I said, I'll do a recap of that on tomorrow, Sunday. Just gives me something else to talk about in the game plan going into next week. But that's pretty much all I got. I mean, you just got to know the types of trades you want to be taking every single day. The high probability ones, you just have to know how to read the Friday charts. They're very important. You can't just trade the 0 DT crosses. You're not going to do well. You have to know the higher time frame context of where we're at, and the 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, very important areas that you got to look for the 50 SMAs. Like, are we near that massive resistance at the 4 hour? Are we crossing on the 4 hour? Like, what do we look like? So yeah, that's pretty much what we did throughout the week. Really good week. I'll go over Friday's trades tomorrow and give you guys the recap, or not the recap, the plan going into the week. But yeah, drop a sub if you guys are new. Join the Court if you guys want to learn. That is the place to be if you want to learn. I mean, I'm in there all day, every day, helping you guys out, giving you guys what I'm looking for. So if you guys actually want to learn how to do this, how to trade the charts, that's all I got. I'm out. Peace.